Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, got another Strand Warlock build for you today. This one has really been covered by a lot of the community already, but it is so incredibly fun, and it uses one of my favorite exotics in the game that I really wanted to cover it myself as well. So, this is basically just a souped up version of the original, Necrotic grip with Osteo Striga build, that I have covered in the past, mostly on Void, because that's usually the best place to do something like this. But Strand has made it infinitely better than we've ever had it before. Getting into this, obviously, you do want Necrotic grips, and you do want Osteo. Technically, you can use Touch of Malice or Thorn, but honestly, it's not really recommended. They're not that great. So just use Osteo. It is way better than anything we've had before. And yeah, it's going to make this build very, very strong. With both of these together, basically what will happen is that when you get a kill with Osteo, it will infinitely spread poison until there's nothing left to spread to. And Necrotic by itself will just cause your melee to poison, which will then, when they are killed while poisoned, it will spread infinitely until there's nothing left to poison. So very, very strong exotics. And with Strand, on Warlock, you can make this extremely strong, thanks to the Mindspun Invocation aspect here, which is when you consume your Shackle grenade, you activate a buff called Weaver's Trance, for 25 seconds, by the way. And while that happens, any final blow, doesn't matter what it is with, will, create a suspending burst. And this is insane, because Suspend is very powerful. It's the mechanic where you lift up the enemies and they're kind of just stuck there for a while. And yeah, you could pretty much do that to literally everything in the game, besides bosses. So having the ability to cause that effect with every single kill is very, very powerful. So for the Strand Subclass, obviously you are going to want the Shackle grenade. You will be wanting to consume the grenade. You can technically throw it around as well if you want to. That's completely fine. You are going to be getting your grenade back pretty quickly, so you can obviously do that, but make sure you are still consuming the grenade for the Weaver's Trance buff. We also have Weaver's Call. This is the only other option you have. It's not very useful for this build. We don't really need Threadlings for this. Threadlings are kind of an afterthought in this build because we're really just going all in on the Suspend. But yeah, very powerful stuff with all these three together, so that's what you want. So now for the mods. First off, we have Thread of Warding, which is when you pick up an Orb of Power, you get Woven Mail. This is incredibly busted. Woven Mail is very strong. With 100 Resi, it's about 60% DR, or damage reduction. So, things really won't be touching you. You can tank a lot of stuff with Woven Mail, and all you have to do is pick up an Orb of Power. So, across all characters, this is very strong, and I recommend just having this in every build, regardless of what you're doing, because Woven Mail is just that strong. Next up, we have Thread of Continuity, which is going to increase the duration of our Suspend mechanic. It is also going to increase Sever and Unravel. We don't have Sever, but we do have Unravel with the melee, which is very strong with Necrotic Grip, because you can just, chuck the melee from across the map. It'll poison them and then unravel them, which basically is kind of like Outbreak, and it'll do a little bit of background damage, which is going to be very nice for something that we have coming up very shortly. But yeah, I do recommend having this. I also have it in here for strength, since I am trying to run triple hundreds in the abilities that I actually need, and then obviously you need resilience, so yeah. Next up, I have Thread of Generation, which is also absolutely busted, and this is basically going to give you grenade energy when you just deal damage. Now, because of the nature of this build, and the sheer amount of ad clear you can achieve with this build, you will never run out of those Shackle grenades. You will always have a Shackle grenade. So this is really nice. And of course, with the Shackle grenade, you can suspend. Our Suspend is being, increased. And then we have Woven Mail to top that off. So very, very strong already. For the last fragment, honestly, you can use whatever you like. I have Thread of Transmutation just for stats. But there are a few things that I recommend using. So, Thread of Wisdom is extremely strong, because when you defeat a suspended target with a precision final blow, you get an Orb of Power. So, essentially, you could suspend with the Shackle Grenade and Weaver's Trance, and then you could kill them with a precision kill. and that's going to give you an Orb of Power, which is going to give you Woven Mail. So that's a nice way of infinitely chaining Woven Mail without needing multi-kills. So, you know, if you want that, go right ahead, you can use that. Otherwise, there are a few things for Strand weapons that you could use if you're using a Strand Heavy, because I don't recommend taking off Osteo for this build. And, I mean, you can use something like Thread of Isolation as well, which, when landing rapid precision hits, which is very easy to do with something like Osteo, it'll emit a severing burst from the target, which is going to sever the target and any enemies around it. So, this, with the burst from the Shackle grenade and Weaver's Trance, is also really nice. And basically what severing does is it will act kind of like overload and just reduce the enemy's damage against you. So, you know, pairing that with Woven Mail as well and 100 resi is kind of busted. So if you want that, go right ahead, that is very strong. Otherwise, it's up to you, really. There isn't really much else. You could use the activating your grenade ability reloads your equipped weapon as well. That's kind of nice, just a passive buff. You know, don't need to reload when you consume your Shackle grenade or you throw your Shackle grenade, which is nice. Defeating suspended targets grant class ability, that's really good too. Although, because of how necessary these three are, and how good I think Sever is, it's kind of hard to get this in here. But you can get it in here, so, you know, if you want to do that, go ahead. But that's pretty much it for Strand. It's quite straightforward, and very powerful. So, now, for the mods, again, very just up to you, really. In the helmet here, I have Heavy Ammo Finder and Heavy Ammo Scout. This is mostly just for teammates, and also technically myself. The reason why I have this in here is because we're doing so much ad clear. Like, the ad clear potential of this build is so insane that you're really going to just be shitting out Heavy. Heavy will be everywhere for your team and yourself. So I think that's why you should have this in here. Otherwise, you could use whatever you want. You know, go for it. I do have Kinetic Siphon as well to get orbs. Glove mods. Honestly, I've kind of doubled down on just getting more grenade energy and rift energy. I feel like because the Warlock has 3 melee charges, you don't really need to worry about getting those back. Especially since these work without having a powered melee charge. Whereas with the grenade one, for example, you do need a grenade. And for any of the rift ones, you need a rift. But for the melee, it's just any melee. So that's why I like to spec on these ones a little bit more, because you don't really need to care about actually having the melee back. Even though the melee is very strong, and, you know, you should build into getting it back, which I have done with the 100 strength, you don't need it for these kind of mods. They also have heavy-handed to get orbs. I actually forgot this was even in here, even though I can see it. So yeah, I have Kinetic Siphon and I have heavy-handed. This is nice because I can kill something, get an orb, and then every enemy around that enemy that I just killed with my melee will be, you know, poisoned. And then I can pick up the orb for Woven Mail. So that's really nice. But you can swap all of these out if you want to focus on the abilities that you want the most. But I think focusing on getting the grenade back faster and the rift back faster and having a way of getting an orb is very valuable for this build. Next up, I've double charged up. This is just a no-brainer move. This is so that I can have a lot of armor charges to help whatever I'm using those charges on. In this case, that is Kickstart. So definitely have these in here. Next, I have Recuperation, which is kind of no-brainer as well. Getting health every time you pick up an orb is extremely valuable, especially since when we pick up an orb, not only will we get health now, but we also get Woven Mail, so makes us much harder to kill. Then I have Orbs of Restoration. Haven't really tested this too much with the multiple melees, but I think it will work mostly on the class ability and the grenade, which is kind of what I want. I don't know if this will ever work on the melee, because it has 3 melee charges, or if it only works on the melee, because it has 3 melee charges. Let me know how this mod works. Otherwise, you can just run, you know, picking up an orb gives you grenade energy, picking up an orb gives you melee energy, or class ability energy, whichever one you want. But I think Orbs of Restoration does have a place if the triple melees don't ruin it. Then I have charged up so that when I pick up a orb, instead of getting 1 charge, I get 2 charges. Which I think is just nice for getting Kickstart ready immediately. So, yeah. And then I have double Kickstart. Obviously, I would just use 1 Kickstart, because that's really all you need when you have 5 charges. Because I do have 5 charges with this. So with 5 charges and 1 kickstart, you get about 40%, 35%, 40%. And with 2, you get about 50%. So really, it's negligible increase. I could go without the second one, and normally I would. I want Reaper in here, but Reaper's disabled, so I can't put that in there. Basically, what that would mean is that my weapon, my melee, and my class ability give me orbs, which is really nice for Woven Mail uptime, which is something that you should be trying to spec into. So yeah. And then when I use my class ability, I get a bit of grenade energy with Bomber, which is nice because I do want as many Shackle grenades as possible for Panic option and to have Weaver's Trance. So that's the build. Very straightforward. Again, I do recommend triple 100 in these stats. You do not need Recov in this build because we have so much access to boosting that class ability. And trust me, we get the class ability back very fast, even with 30 Recov. But also, you don't need Recov for healing anymore, honestly. Especially on Warlock, because we do get our Rift back fast, so, you know, I don't need to worry about that. But also, I have Recuperation and Woven Mail, and potentially the Sever mechanic, if I decide to use that Fragment. So having Recov, honestly, for a build like this, does not matter at all. But yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think. There isn't much else to really say about this. It's kind of just whatever. Your other 2 weapons, you can use whatever you like. I'm just using, you know, my usual ones. You can use whatever you like there. It is just a ad clear focus build. I would recommend just, like, if you're a Warlock, have this for ad clear, and then just switch to Starfire when you need to do DPS, right? So, it is what it is. But let me know what you think of the build. Enjoy the gameplay at the end here, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.
Static attack is on pause. Real attack incoming.